have a bicycle here. This one is a road bicycle with the addition of aero bars, thanks for triathlon-specific events. But all the same principles apply to any type of bike that you have: mountain bike, road bike, BMX bike, doesn't matter. Now, one thing that with a geared bike such as this, with a derailleur and the gear systems, what you need to do for the rear wheel is, in order to make your life easier to get the wheel off the bike, is shift the derailleur so that the derailleur is fully out of the way of the wheel. And by that I mean, you can see how the derailleur here is in the smallest cog. These are the gears in the back called cogs. Now, to remove the wheel with a quick release such as this, there are many bikes here that I see that have bolts to hold the bike on, the wheel on, and I can show you an example of how to get the wheel off with that. But on a quick release, it makes things very easy to remove the wheel from the bike. There's a lever on this side attached to the axle that you just undo, and as you can see, the wheel will start to fall out. But in order to get the wheel the rest of the way out, it's important to get the derailleur out of the way. So a little help with the derailleur is necessary. So for the kickstand. Okay. So now, once we've removed the wheel and simulate a flat tire, we now can begin removing the tire so we can get to the tube. Okay. Now, there are some specific tools to do this. I'm sure many people have in the past used screwdrivers or whatnot, and with the screwdrivers, there are nice sharp edges on the screwdriver that can put more holes in your nice new tube, and that's something you want to avoid. Now, to remove a wheel, remove the tire, there are what's called tire levers. Now, tire levers, there is a hook on one side and another hook on the other side, shaped a little different. What you need to do to remove the tire is there are sections of the tire that will attach to the rim, and I can kind of bring it around to you. There's a section of a tire right in here called the bead of the tire, and what that does, the bead hooks into the hook of the rim. The sidewall of the rim is the hook, and there's a little bead in here. Show you this. This little section, you can pull the wheel away right in here, and there's a very tight fit between the rim and the tire, and that's where the tire levers come in handy, because they're a lever that help you get leverage off of, pull the tire off of the rim. Most every bike truck or wheel have this type of Now, to separate the bead from the rim, it's very simple. Take your tire lever, insert it between the rim and the tire, as such. And what you want to do is line it up with one of the spokes. Because this hook, when you hook the tire lever onto the bead and pull the lever down, now it hooks into the spoke. Now the lever's not going to go anywhere. Now it's not quite all the way off. That's why we have multiple tire levers. Now you go over to the next one, do the same. And you can see it's starting to pull the tire off of the rim. Okay. Do that one more time with your tire lever. You've got quite a good section of the tire off.
How did you decide which ones to put that into?
Which spokes? It does not matter.
But I mean, notice that you didn't put opposite each other on the tire.
What you want to do is you want to pull the tire off in sections, so you want to put them next to each other. So I've started over here, let's say the opposite side of the tire. You wouldn't be just pulling off a little section, you'd be pulling off a little bit over here and a little bit over here. And what that actually does is makes the tire tighter on the rim. There's a little bit of play, it's very tight, but there's a little bit of play in the tire to kind of move on the rim when there's no air in it. So if I concentrate all that in one section, the tire will easily come off. Okay. Now, if the tire has not already become easy enough to just pull off the rim, you can take one tire lever off, like done, and just move it down again to the next one or so. Now you see it's getting loose enough where actually the tire lever is starting to fall out. Okay. Now, at this point, it's very easy to pull the tire off by just pushing the tire lever along the tire all the way around, just like that. Now we've removed one half of the tire from the rim. Okay? If you are just changing a flat, this is all you need to do, because now you can pull the tube out from inside the tire. And now you have your tube with your hole in it. That if you're on a ride and you're out in the road, you can just fold this up, bring it with you, and catch it at home. Or if you're at home changing a flat, you can now, what you want to do is...
Matt, do you normally not put the lock nut on the valve, or you had already taken that one off?
I did not take this one off. It is actually, in my opinion, not necessary to be there. Basically, it just holds the valve steady, so it doesn't move around and roll. Now, what he's talking about, we have one on the front wheel here, is with this particular type of valve, it's called a French valve or a Presta valve. There is a nut right here that's threaded onto the valve here, and what this is doing is holding the valve onto the rim so it doesn't rattle as you ride, which can make a noise. That little nut that he's referring to here. Now, many people will put them on religiously. Some people don't. Honestly, in my opinion, doesn't matter. If you have a problem with your valve moving, then yeah, go ahead and put one on. But it's not necessary. Okay.
Excuse me, this might have been asked, but is this the same technique to get it off of a mountain bike?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everything. A mountain bike, a BMX bike, unicycle, doesn't matter.
Doesn't
it's
matter
all
as
the
far
same
as the
type.
technique to get
Yep.
the
Yep.
off.
And actually, to be quite honest with you, it's the same technique for your car tires. They just use bigger tools. Now, we've got your tube, and now we've got back up just a little bit. Now, if you are installing a new tire, say your tire wore out, and you just want to change your tire. To remove the tire, there should be, see how it's very loose on the rim, moves around. You should be able to just pull it off, and voila, you've got your tire. Now you can take your new tire and install it back onto the rim. Since the tubes come flat, and it's much easier to work with the tube when there's a little bit of air pressure in it, so it maintains its shape. You need to put a small amount of pressure in it. Now it has some shape, and it's a little easier to manipulate and move around. Okay. Now that we've got our tire and our tube, one little trick that we try to do at the shop is on every tire there's a manufacturer's label, and what we try to do is just line up your valve with the label, because say in a race situation, if you're in a triathlon, you get a flat tire, you're not always thinking straight, can't always find the valve very easily, so you can find the label, because in this one's nice bright yellow, you can very easily find the label on the tire. Once you found the label, you found the valve quickly, you can then go ahead and change it. Now, this is one way to install a tire and tube onto the rim. In my opinion, it's quite easy to do. Insert the tube into the tire, like this. That's one reason why we have it give it a little shape, because if we didn't, it'd just fall out. Now, you want to take your rim, and just like when we took it off, we took off half the tire first. and then we took off the other half. We're going to do the same thing, putting it back on. Now, also, just a nice little detail. This valve, this label is typically, many tires can be directional, which means they're meant to rotate in a specific direction. They will put the label on the side of the drivetrain, or the drivetrain side, or the drive side. Now, because the gears are on the drive side, you can line up your label with your gears like this and install your valve first. That's the first area you want to work from. And you don't want the valve to be crooked like this. What that's going to do is put a lot of stress on that valve and could break the valve or rip the valve away from the rubber. You want to make sure you get your valve nice and straight. Found a nice hole. Okay. Now what you do is you want to insert your first half of your tire onto the rim. And actually I will come around. You can feel I can show you specifically what that bead is on the tire. You can feel right here. That's the hard bead. That's the bead of the tire. Right here on the very edge. Feel it's nice and it's a hard wire there.
It's like a thick seam.
Right. It's a thick seam, and that is very stiff and will hook into the rim to keep the tire from popping off. Feel it's thick there. Thick. Yep, you can feel the difference in the very stiff wire. That is just to give you an illustration of what I'm talking about when I say bead the tire. Now we've inserted our valve into the rim, making sure it's straight. Now we need to seat the bead, and we are inserting the tire onto the rim, and we're only going to do half of it. Okay, so what you do is it's loose enough still where you can just work it around and get back to the same point where we were right after the tire levers. Okay, and what I'm doing here is you can see how the tube is kind of sticking out from the rim, and but this section down here, it is seated inside the rim. What happens here is, if you go to now install the rest of the tire without making sure that that tube has been cleared of the rim, like it is down here, it's going to have to pinch that tube when you install the second bead of the tire. And you don't want to do that because you just fix the flat. You don't want to create another one. I put a little too much air pressure in here, making it a little difficult for me, so you can just back some of that off, let it out, and you can now go ahead and just pull that tube so it's sitting on the rim and not outside the rim like that. Now we've got to the point where we're at our second to last step. Starting from the valve, you want to reseat the second bead, just like you did the first one. So start just pulling the tire over onto the rim, so it's sitting inside the rim, and just work away from the valve. You don't want to damage the valve at all. Now, when you gently, it's very easy at this point still to just move the tire up onto the rim. But now, we're getting to the point where it's getting very tough because putting the second bead over the rim is a tight fit now. All that play is kind of disappearing when you start to put the second bead on the rim. This is where, if you have enough hand strength, you can just kind of roll it over onto the rim. But many times, it's just as easy to go back to your tire levers, insert your tire lever in between the rim and your bead, okay? Preferably near where the bead is coming off of the rim. Insert it in between the rim and the tire, and just lift up, and the bead will start popping over. Sometimes you have to hold it on this side so it doesn't come off on this side. But then just take the tire lever and just keep working it around. You can hear it pop over. You will break your tire lever before you break the rim of the tire, especially the plastic ones. You can get metal tire levers that also have sharp edges, which I don't like as much. They can pop the tube also. But the plastic ones are strong enough to do the job, but weak enough where if you really get in trouble, they'll break. So, now the tire kind of just popped over onto the bead. Now, it is now installed onto the tire. All that's left is to inflate it. Very easy to do, just like your car tire. Insert your pump, and also on every tire there will be a maximum pressure limit of what you want to inflate the tire to. The units that you inflate your tire to is called PSI. It stands for pounds per square inch. The more PSI you have in your tire, the firmer the tire will be. But you do not ever want to go past the limit that is stated on the tire. For example, this one says maximum inflate 150 PSI. It's a fairly high pressure tire. Most of the mountain bikes that I see out here will run at most 35 to 40 to 50 PSI. So this particular one is a very high pressure. Now what you want to do is pump it up. You don't want to pump it up all the way at first. What you want to do is pump it up, give it some shape, put a little bit of pressure in, and then what you want to do is check it by spinning the wheel. Now this one has come out nicely, so I can't show you what happens if it goes wrong. But sometimes the bead of the tire does not seat into the rim very well. It doesn't hook into the hook on the rim. And you'll see that by the tire, the tube, when you start to inflate it, will start coming through in between the tire and tube, and you'll see a big bulge in the tire. And then if you spin it, you'll see the tire having a large hop up and down. And then you know you're in trouble, let the air out, and then reseat that section, and then start again. This one is okay though, so we can continue to pump it up.
Excuse me, Matt,
Yes.
if we don't have a bicycle pump with a gauge on it, thank you, how can they tell if they're going too far with it?
You can't, for sure. Without a gauge, there isn't any way to tell absolutely sure if you're going too high. But
But if you got a high pressure tire, these two.
exactly.
I was gonna say, I don't think I can put 150 pounds
Exactly.
in there with that pump.
But I'm thinking more about the mountain bikes. Can they ever
Right.
do on the
With-
mountain bike?
with the mountain bikes with
those
a
are
lower
only, what,
pressure.
50?
It's very easy to. But say if you're out on a ride and you don't have a pump with a gauge, such as her mini pump here, does not have a gauge on it. What you do is make the tire firm enough to get you home, and also through experience you can kind of feel whether there's too much pressure in the tire, or if there's adequate pressure in the tire for you to be able to ride home with.
If your front and back are the same, you could kind of
Exactly. If your front and back are the same, you kind of do the old thumb test, kind of press it with your thumb and feel how firm it is with your thumb, and then go back to back to your other one.
Have a pump that doesn't have a gauge on it?
Yes?
About how much does a gauge, separate gauge cost?
You can get gauges that will work for just a couple dollars, like an automotive store, or you can get other gauges a little nicer, a little more accurate for bicycle pressures
What do
for
you
12 and
recommend?
13.
And you sell those?
Yes, we sure do. Yep. Now, one reason the car tires don't always work, the pressure gauges for the car tires, you rarely ever see a car tire that goes more than 50, 60 PSI, and that's even really high for a car as well. So the gauges aren't calibrated to go that high. So they probably wouldn't even reach the 150 PSI that this tire could handle. So many of the bicycle tire gauges are calibrated to go up to the very high pressures, but they will also handle the lower pressures of the mountain bikes. So then if your pump has a gauge, pump it up to your desired pressure. You can go anywhere up to 150 PSI. If you don't and you're on a ride and you just want to get home, make it firm enough so when you're riding, you'll be able to feel your tire will kind of be a little squirming if you don't have enough pressure in it, and your bike won't handle well. You'll really be able to feel it. You're too low on pressure. Now, to reinstall a wheel with quick release, yes.
What if you got a flat and you don't have a phone for a replacement?
You then is you hopefully find somebody that has a phone and call mom and dad and say, come and get me. So that's the best thing. Definitely find somebody you can trust and go from there.
Where you want it?
There are bags that's, I don't know what's in here, but
Well, now that we're getting to know each other, Matt.
she has got a tire lever. Many times you can do this whole function with just one tire lever like she has, and she's got her spare tube.
Does she have her quarter and her Band-Aid?
Good question.
I carry
No, she doesn't.
a fanny pack, but I have to show you what I have in there. I have gone up the spin cycle so many times to have this explained to me, but I now carry my little step-by-step notes.
Yep.
This has been in there so long now, something's got in there and chewed off a corner of it, so I need to rewrite that. That might be real important what I'm missing. But.
Yep. So definitely a note like this is very good to remind you, because sometimes if you're out on a ride and you get a flat, you just may not always be able to think straight of what you need to do.
Also, if your bag isn't as big as hers,
Yes.
it goes. You can put a tube between her bag and the seat,
Absolutely.
and that's where a lot of
Yep.
people carry them.
Yep.
You can hold it in with a rubber band
You just
right in there. It's a
talk
great
about
place
sticking it
to
right
put
in there.
the bag.
And just attach it with a rubber band or so. Like
Right.
that. Definitely.
If you were to have a flat and not be able to fix it, if you walk your bike a couple miles, are you going to damage the tire with the rim?
What you want to do, if you do walk your bike, the best way to do it would be to, if it's a rear tire, lift up the rear of the bike and just roll it on the front wheel. Or if it's the front wheel, just lift up the bike so it rolls it on the rear wheel. That's still good. You don't ever want to ride your bike with a flat tire, because that will guaranteed ruin your rim very quickly. But if you are able to walk in an area that doesn't have concrete on it, if there's a grass along the side of the road, the grass isn't going to harm the metal rim. That's fine. But the harder surfaces like the asphalt and the concrete are abrasive enough where it can really damage the rim, and you need to then replace it. So nothing catastrophic happens. Okay. Any questions?
No, I'd like to say though,
Yeah.
that the couple times that I've had a flat, I put a new tube on, or I had a new tube put on by me, and then got another flat like a
Yes,
second later,
very good
so
point.
I would recommend
Very
two
good point.
tubes.
Very good point. Bring a couple tubes. Really want to be safe, but then also what you want to do is you want to try to find the cause of that flat. Okay, you do that, unfortunately, with the tire off the bike. Say you get a flat, and when the tube is out of the tire, pump it up, and you can pump up tubes huge, and they'll get this big. And when you do pump up the tire, pump up the tube when it's not installed in the tire, it'll exaggerate the holes that are in the tube, and you'll be able to hear the air rushing out, and you can find out what caused that hole. And if there's a thorn in the tire, you'll be able to see the hole caused by the thorn, and you go, and another reason why you keep your label lined up with your valve, because if you get a thorn here and you take out your tube and you find the hole in the tube here, you can easily go to this section of tire and pull out that thorn so you don't get another flat in your nasty tube. So find out the cause of why you've got the flat so it doesn't happen again as soon as you put on the tire. So that good.
I have a different tire for when my wheel's up on the train.
Okay.
Okay.
So as you pump up your
That might, I don't know the condition of that tube.
We'll find out if it's flat.
Yeah.
It is. You can put in, actually it has a hole in it. It goes out as fast as I can put it in.
It's one of my high performance tubes.
Actually, this is great because this will show an example of many tires
Snake
get a
bite.
flat. Okay, it's called the snake bite.
Is that the one that I blew up?
And the reason is, you can see the two holes right there? It looks as if a snake bit the tube. Okay, right there, you can see the holes?
I changed this tire myself, and it's okay.
That's right. Just like that. Now, where those holes came from is where that tube got pinched in between the tire and the rim. And one hole was caused because of the rim, and the other one was caused by the tire, the object hitting the tire. So therefore, you get two equal holes. That happens, and you notice that the tire has a pinch flat or a snake bite. It's very easy to fix. You just put a new tube in. You don't have to worry about finding a thorn because there's nothing in the tire that's going to cause the flat. It was just caused to become flat because of compression of the tire and hitting the rim. So the tube to keep that tire from getting compressed against the rim and pinching the tube. Now tires will lose air over time, and the butyl rubber that the tube is made out of just is not 100% airtight. Almost nothing is rubber or flexible like this. So you do need to constantly check your tires, make sure they're inflated to the correct pressure. So that is something that's important to do, especially before you're in a competition or you're deciding to go out on a little longer ride. You're not going to be so close to home you can just walk home. You want to make sure your tires are inflated. If I go out on a long ride that's more than a couple miles from home, every single time I will pump up my tires to make sure they're at the correct pressure. Into the dropouts all the way. Now, because if you don't, you can put the wheel in crooked and then we rub the brake. All kinds of things can happen with that. Now, in a quick release, it is important to get correct tension on the lever so the wheel doesn't fall out when you're riding. Okay? It's very easy to do that, so those of you with quick release, it's simple to do. There are two pieces to the quick release. Right there. There is your quick release axle with the lever on it. Here's your lever, there's your axle. And you have the nut on the other side, which will help hold on the other side. Now, for example, the front wheel, once you've inserted the wheel into the bicycle, and you then you can either tighten up the nut like this. Just turn the nut here until it threads down, or you can just hold the nut and spin this side. Okay. Now, this lever is meant to be turned in order to attach the wheel. It is not meant to be just use the lever to screw it down onto the bike, and there, now you're good to go, because this can and will fall out in this manner. What you want to do is, as this lever goes through its action, I can kind of show you over there too, as it goes through the action, you want to feel tension at about halfway, because this will swing full, it will go all the way over like this. So You then just close it. It'll take some force. Sometimes you can grab the bike with your hand and just close it the rest of the way. And now it's secure. It won't come out. Okay. For the rear, since you got the derailleur out of the way for the rear of the bike, you want to now kind of get it in the way. You attach your chain again to the gear on the back, like this, and then you pull up your wheel until it can slide in the dropouts here. And again, you try to make sure that your wheel is fully in the dropouts. And on this particular bike, you need to make sure your wheel is straight in the frame, because you can make it cockeyed, and then you're kind of be constantly turning. And it's the same method of securing your quick release for the front as it is the rear. Popular style of brake, it's called a V brake, identified by the nice long straight arms, like this. And I'll grab the other. You can be confident your bike's not going to break down on you as often, and you can have much more fun that way. In order to do that, you need to keep the bike clean. Clean bike is a happy bike. It likes to be clean. When it's clean, you can easily notice things that might be wrong with it, things that have come out of adjustment. Any damage to the frame that may have happened when you crashed and had your last big crash. There might have been some damage done to the frame. So if your bike is clean, free of dirt, you can see those problems very easily, and take it to a professional who can look at the bike and determine if it's safe or not and what needs to be done to correct the problem. Now it's very easy to clean your bike. Everybody's got old rags laying around at home. It's very easy in the stand like this because it's motionless, but you can just lean it up against the house, whatever. Don't ever use a high pressure hose. Don't ever use a garden hose that has any kind of pressure system on it. Very common mistake, but what happens is as great a quality as most of the bikes are, as great as seals that they have to protect the bearings and the grease from the dirt, high pressure water will get in there and wash all that grease away. As soon as you've done that, you're in a world of hurt. All that grease is the only thing keeping you from spending a lot of money on replacing those parts that have been worn out without grease. Now, the best way to do it, if you're at home, have a spray bottle. This happens to be simple green. You get it anywhere. You can use Windex if you want to, because it will clean the bike up fairly nicely. If you do want to use a hose, the only time a hose is acceptable is if you use like a garden hose that you just let the water run out of. Don't use any kind of attachment, or if you do, like, maybe a misting attachment, so there's no really forceful water being sprayed in your bike. Now, very simple, if you do use a hose, what you want to do also is you get a bucket of soapy water. You just use some Ivory or dish soap or whatever, just some mild detergent like that. And you can use a sponge, just like you would washing your car. Just go to town, wash your bike. The mild detergent like that isn't going to wash the grease away, especially in the protected areas like the hubs and the bottom bracket. So it's very easy to. And then when you want to rinse the, yes, sorry.
What about some like Armor All?
Typically don't use Armor All, especially like if you want to make your tires look nice, because you can use Armor All on tires and things. You don't really want to do that because the Armor All is a very, very slippery material. You can be confident your bike's not going to break down on you as often, and you can have much more fun that way. In order to do that, you need to keep the bike clean. Clean bike is a happy bike. It likes to be clean. When it's clean, you can easily notice things that might be wrong with it, things that have come out of adjustment. Any damage to the frame that may have happened when you crashed and had your last big crash. There might have been some damage done to the frame. So if your bike is clean, free of dirt, you can see those problems very easily, and take it to a professional who can look at the bike and determine if it's safe or not and what needs to be done to correct the problem. Now it's very easy to clean your bike. Everybody's got old rags laying around at home. It's very easy in the stand like this because it's motionless, but you can just lean it up against the house, whatever. Don't ever use a high pressure hose. Don't ever use a garden hose that has any kind of pressure system on it. Very common mistake, but what happens is as great a quality as most of the bikes are, as great as seals that they have to protect the bearings and the grease from the dirt, high pressure water will get in there and wash all that grease away. As soon as you've done that, you're in a world of hurt. All that grease is the only thing keeping you from spending a lot of money on replacing those parts that have been worn out without grease. Now, the best way to do it, if you're at home, have a spray bottle. This happens to be simple green. You get it anywhere. You can use Windex if you want to. It will clean the bike up fairly nicely. If you do want to use a hose, the only time a hose is acceptable is if you use like a garden hose that you just let the water run out of. Don't use any kind of attachment, or if you do, like maybe a misting attachment, so there's no really forceful water being sprayed in your bike. Now, if you do use a hose, what you want to do also is you get a bucket of soapy water. You just use some Ivory dish soap or whatever, just some mild detergent like that, and you can use a sponge just like you would washing your car. Just go to town, wash your bike. The mild detergent like that isn't going to wash the grease away, especially in the protected areas like the hubs and the bottom bracket. So it's very easy to. And then when you want to rinse the, yes, sorry.
What about for like armor all?
Typically don't use Armor All, especially like if you want to make your tires look nice, because you can use Armor All on tires and things. You don't really want to do that because the Armor All is a very, very slippery material.
I was talking about like on the frame.
The frame, there are much better things to use than Armor All. Armor All is a little bit more protecting. Things like Armor All, I've seen some bikes come into the shop with Armor All and other types of polish. Once you get that cutting on the rim, that stuff is slippery. You just race. And until that compound wears off of your rim, you effectively have no more brakes until that rubs off. So you want to use something mild that's not going to leave any kind of residue, such as a Simple Green or a Windex or some mild detergent. That stuff doesn't leave any kind of residue. It dries up and it's gone. And it's friendlier on the environment when you let it drip on your driveway. Okay. So once you have cleaned your bike, wiped it down, just like something mild like this, you can just spray everywhere on your rims, everywhere, wipe it all down, get all your dirt off, and you can really kind of reach in the nooks and crannies of the frame. Down here. Down here is the most difficult area, down by the cranks, because it's so tight. Big hands can't get in there very well. Now you've cleaned off frame. It's all looking shiny and new. It's dry. You then want to look towards your drivetrain, your gears, the derailleurs, chain, the front gears, the rear gears here. Now, one of the most common mistakes I see people do is they will lube their chain much too much. When you lube your chain too much, all that extra oil I've even seen some have so much oil where it sprays on the rim as the tire chain goes around. It sprays on the rim, coats the rim with lube. Again, you just reduce the efficiency of your brakes. So you want to make sure you lube your chain, but not too much. And an effective way to do that is start with a clean chain. Now, there are many ways to clean the chain. You can take the chain off and things, but just doing something at home, unless you really know how to take the chain apart, it's easiest just to take a rag and just run the chain through the rag. A little bit of dirt came off. It's not so bad. Our chain's fairly clean. I've done many chains where I'll take 3 rags to clean off, and I end up looking like mess. So this is a part of washing your bike with the soapy water and with your mild detergent. You can clean the drivetrain because it will get a lot of the dirt you can see on your trailers, on your chains here. All this dirt will come off with that. So then you can wipe your chain down very well and remove as much dirt as possible. Now, once you have cleaned your chain to your satisfaction, you now need to re-lube it because you've just taken off most of the lube.
Do you use anything to help clean off the old?
In very grimy, dirty situations, I will use a citrus-based degreaser, which is basically made from oranges. The orange, the acid that's in oranges makes a great degreaser when it's concentrated. It's easier on your hands. You let it go in the driveway. It's not going to kill anything. Not going to do anything. It works wonders on chains. But there's a caution to that. You can really kind of overdo it and really get yourself kind of in over your head, just kind of cleaning up your bike in the driveway. So if it's really bad and you really want to clean it, spray a little bit of degreaser on the chain and let it sit and soak and kind of work into the chain and make sure it is working and doing its job. And it's very important to wash off all the excess, all that you possibly can, because then if you leave a lot of it on there, it's just going to eat away the fresh lube that you put on and make things worse. So you just have to be careful when you do that. Now we've got our nice clean chain. It's as clean as we can get it. And this happens to be a drip application because you drip it on. Many people, we use a spray. Lubes can come in a spray can like this. And the spray tends to be a little easier to put on, a little less time because you can just run your chain through and spray it on and lube the chain that way.
I like that WD-40.
Is a system that will some way attach to your chain or your derailleur, and you thread the chain through. It's got brushes on the inside and there's some solvent on the inside, and as you run your chain through, it works its way through the brushes and the brush will let you scrub the chain. Very good idea to do, and that will get your chain clean on the bicycle very easily. So that's something that you can definitely do as well. Now, once you've cleaned your chain, you want to apply lube. If you use a drip lube, 1 drop per link, 1 drop per little pivot is all you need, and that's actually too much. You will wipe that away as well. Or if you use a spray can, just run the chain backwards through and just spray it until you've got an even coating on the whole chain. Now, once you've done that and you lube your chain, you've gone through and you put a drop on each link, you can run the chain backwards through the derailleur, through the gear system, get that oil worked into the inside of the chain, because that's what it needs, the oil. Okay. Now once you've let it sit, let it soak into the chain, get it working into the inside of the chain, you now need to wipe off all of the excess. There will be a bunch of excess, especially just accidentally put too much on. And to do that, you do it, take a clean rag, do it just like you were cleaning the chain. Just grab the chain with the hand, with the rag, and just run the chain through, and all that excess lube will end up on your rag. And you don't need to lube the outside of the chain, it's the inside of the chain you need to lube. So if you're wiping it off the outside of the chain, it does great things in that oil will attract dirt very well, very well. And like we were saying, a clean bike is a happy bike. If your chain is clean and lubricated on the inside, you'll get the most life out of your chain. You'll get better shifts if you have a shifting type bike, or it'll just run smoother if you have a single speed type bike, and it will be happy. So it's a 3-step process to lubricate your chain. You need to clean it first, you need to lube your chain, and then once you've lubed your chain, it's to wipe off all of the excess.
How many miles should you do that?
It varies greatly on where you ride, how often you ride, what kind of conditions you ride in. As far as lubing your chain, the frequency of lubing your chain, many times if you're riding off-road In the summertime, it's very dusty. Your chain will get a lot of dust on it and dirt. I lubricate my mountain bike chain almost every ride. Sometimes in the summertime when it gets really, really dry. If it's in the wintertime where it's really wet and not so dry, the dirt really doesn't stick to the chain. I may go 3, 4, 5 rides without losing the chain. You just have to pay attention to the chain and kind of let it tell you how often to lubricate it. Yes?
I had a friend that one time said that every time he went out and mountain bike, he had to lube the chain. He had to like use the special stuff on it because it came off so quickly.
Yep, there are.
He had to wash it off every time.
Yep, there are special lubricants that are designed just for basically one use kind of application. You go out for your one ride, and that's it. And you reinstall it. But many of the spray type lubricants or the lube that I was using there are a little bit more longer lasting type of lubricants. So it will lubricate your chain longer. You don't have to think about it as much. But you do need to pay attention to your chain, pay attention to the bike, keep it clean. And if you have a clean chain, you can see if it needs lubrication or not. If it's covered in mud, you don't know if it needs lubrication. It usually does, but you don't know. One thing you want to do regularly is to check the bearing surfaces of your bicycle. The hubs that your wheels roll on, your bottom bracket here in which your cranks turn, they go around. This is your front hub here that will spin, and your headset, the bearings that allow allow you to steer the bike. Now, it is important to have these to not allow these bearings to become loose. If the bearings become loose, the wheel will wobble on the bike, or the cranks will wobble. They'll have free play in it, and you will wear those pieces out very, very quickly. The bearings are generally a very high quality precision pieces that if you allow them to get to play and ride them continually when they're loose, you'll damage them very easily. And when you do that, it tends to be very expensive to replace. So just a little preventative maintenance will allow you to maintain your bike and keep it for as long as possible without wearing things out prematurely. Now, to check to see if your hubs or your bottom bracket or your headset is loose, what you need to do is, very simply, is grab the wheel and just gently push the wheel side to side in this direction. Okay, don't do it like this. You won't know if it's loose or not. You want to push it side to side. And when it's loose, you'll actually feel the wheel give side to side. You'll feel a knock in the wheel. And that happens, your hub is loose and you need to have it adjusted. Now, there can be the other way. If it's too tight, the wheel won't spin freely. Sometimes there's so much resistance because the bearings are so tight that it will literally just stop the wheel very quickly. This is very free. Give it a little effort, and it'll just sit there and spin and spin and spin. So that's one thing you can check for a hub that's too tight, is just spin it. And if it feels very free, it's more difficult to check to see if the hub is too tight than if it's too loose. But generally, hubs will become loose, not tight. So checking to see if the hub is loose is more the important thing you want to look for. Just grab your wheel and just gently rock it side to side. And same for the front. Just gently grab your wheel and push it in this direction and feel if there's any play or any knocking within the wheel. Now, to check the bearings for your bottom bracket, where your cranks are, it's very simple also. You push it in this direction, side to side on the bike. Just grab one crank arm and grab the other one near the pedals and do just like the wheel. Just gently rock it back and forth. And if you feel any knocking or any looseness, any free play in there, that's when your bottom bracket is loose and you need to have it adjusted. So these things, if you're riding a lot, especially summertime, now people will be riding quite a bit, you want to check these fairly frequently. Maybe every week or every couple weeks, depending on how much you ride. These things can loosen up, especially kids cruising around the neighborhood, just bombing around and going over bumps and whatnot, can loosen things up very quickly. Now for your headset, it's very common for your headset to become loose because there's a lot of stress at your headset because you're turning it, you put a lot of weight on the front wheel, especially if you're doing jumps or riding over curbs and things. Hitting the front wheel can knock it loose. exactly. I think we have some guilty ones here. To check to see if your headset is loose, a very easy way to do that is to put the bike on the ground, engage the front brake so the front wheel will not move, and gently push the bike back and forth. Just a little bit. And what will happen is it will put side loads on the bearings where just free play, it'll be just like your hubs. You'll feel a knocking. If it feels like this bike, there is no knocking, it feels smooth, you can turn your handlebars with little effort, then you're probably okay. There shouldn't be any problem. But if you do engage the brake, gently rock your bike back and forth, if you knock, then you need to have your headset adjusted. So, making sure that your bike is clean, your chain lubricated, and your bearings are adjusted is going to be the best way to make sure that your bike will perform like it should for the longest possible time. And also, if you're not sure, bring it to any bike shop. I don't know of any bike shop who won't at least just look at your bike for free and just tell you if there's something that needs to be done to it. So if you're just bring it on by any bike shop, ours. And,
For example.
exactly. And they'll be able to tell you what's going on with your bicycle. Yes.
I just say you especially want to do that if you have a new bike
Yes.
that did not come from a bike shop.
Yes, absolutely.
All of those 4 bearings are like it within 100 miles to rock a little bit.
Right, exactly. Typically, the bicycles that are purchased from non-bike shops.
If somebody buys a bike in Walmart,
yes,
assembled.
Try to say it tactfully here. But basically, they have somebody who's never turned a wrench before in their life, building bikes for they get paid on how many bikes they can build. They don't get paid by the hour or salary. So the faster they can get a bike built, they get more paid. So they don't care if the hub is adjusted correctly. They just care if they can get the bike out on the floor and say they built the bike. So if you do purchase a bicycle from someplace like Walmart, to mass merchant like that, these are some things you really want to check out, especially just with the bearings, to make sure that they aren't too tight or too loose, to allow you to make your purchase last as long as possible. Because this bike, no matter where you get it, you want to get your money's worth out of it. Also on a bike such as that, you want to make sure, check the brakes, just like we were checking the brakes here when we were using the quick release. You want to make sure the brakes, they feel good for one, and that the pads actually touch the rims. I've seen some brakes come from department stores, the pads don't even touch the rim. And you want to make sure that all the nuts and bolts and things are tight on the bike. I've seen some bikes that put them in the stand and immediately the wheels fall out and I didn't even touch it. So it can be dangerous. Unfortunately, it's kind of too bad. But just some pointers to look out for. Check your bearing surfaces and check your brakes. And then as you ride the bike, if those are satisfactory to you, as you ride the bike, make sure the gears actually shift and work. So again, if you have any kind of questions with a bike that you just bought, go into any bike shop that has professionals that do it for a living and just have them look it over. So.
Thank you. And having this done professionally by somebody who knows what to look for is really the best person to do it. So you have your bikes here. Matt, if you just take turns coming up to Matt, hopping on your bike so you can kind of look at it to see how your bike fits you, and if some minor adjustments can bring with your seat or just how you sit on your bike, whether or not it's all fitting you, would be really helpful. So
I have a question now about our 8-year-old needs a new bike,